Hey everyone, it's Miss Fiber here. We're going to talk about the nitrogen cycle today. The nitrogen cycle is a very important cycle that we depend on and thrive on that you guys don't realize you're experiencing, that you don't realize it's occurring. It just happens naturally, just like the oxygen respiration cycle, just like the water cycle. What you need to understand is there's free nitrogen floating around in the air. Okay, most of our air is comprised of nitrogen, but it's not in a usable form. So our bodies depend and need nitrogen. We have to have it in order to live. If we don't have nitrogen, we cannot live. So we have like 78% of the air containing this nitrogen that's in an unusable form. Okay, nitrogen that we use and depend on has to be in a compound form. So that means it has to mix with one other element in order for us to use it. So in order for that to occur, we have to fix the nitrogen. And this is the process of nitrogen fixation. So the process of changing free nitrogen into usable form is known as nitrogen fixation. And it's performed by bacteria. So some of these bacteria live in bumps called nodules on the roots of certain plants. So these little bacteria that live in these nodules, which we're going to see here in a minute, and they live in the roots of plants. The plants are known as legumes. Clover, beans, alfalfa, peanuts. This is where our nodules that contain the bacteria are found. You have to know that. The relationship between bacteria and the legumes is an example of mutualism. So both the bacteria and the plant benefit from the relationship. The bacteria feeds on the plant's sugars, and the plant is supplied with the nitrogen in a usable form. So this is a good relationship. The return of nitrogen to the environment. Once nitrogen has been fixed, the producers can use it to build proteins and other complex compounds in animal waste in the bodies of dead organisms. Okay, we need nitrogen to build these proteins that was we discussed back in the human body. Okay, these compounds are important to us. So what happens is when we die, the nitrogen's still in our body and it's returned back to the soil. And the plants that don't make the nitrogen, that's how they obtain the nitrogen for their life processes, is from the soil and the nutrients that dead organisms return to the soil. So it could be animal waste that has the nitrogen broken down, returned to the soil. It could be a dead body that's decomposing and the nitrogen that's left in the body is returned back to the soil. Nitrogen can cycle from the soil to producers and then to consumers several times. This is a process, it's a cycle that keeps going and going and going and going. Okay, so you have to understand that we need the nitrogen. Humans get it from the either eating the plant that makes the nitrogen or from the excess nitrogen that the plant does not use for its own life process releases into the air and we breathe it in that way. So you can either eat it or breathe in that fixed nitrogen. So there's two ways to obtain it. So let's look at my diagram here. At some point, it's going to break down nitrogen compounds completely. These bacteria are then going to release free nitrogen back into the air. So you have to understand, you can either eat nitrogen from the plants, peanuts, alfalfa, beans, those plants contain the nitrogen in it itself, and you get it in your body that way. Or you are breathing in that nitrogen. So let's look at this picture here. Okay, I'm going to probably need to move it over. Okay, so here you have the nitrogen floating in the air. Whoa. Okay, free nitrogen floating in the air. Okay, what happens is these plants, okay, they contain these little bumps, and in these nodules is the bacteria, and the bacteria is breaking down the nitrogen and making it into a compound because it's using the sugar. So the sugar is got some elements in there combining to make a nitrogen compound. That nitrogen is released into the plant. Okay, this duck here, or goose I should say, sorry, the goose is eating the nitrogen, and it's getting the nitrogen from that plant. This is actually alfalfa that it's eating. So it's getting it by eating the alfalfa. Now, a couple different things are happening here. The duck is eventually, goose is eventually going to release some waste. That waste is going to contain nitrogen. and the decomposers, part of our food web, are going to break down the waste and plant remains and return nitrogen compounds into the soil where they can be used by plants. So the grass is now getting the nitrogen. See how that works? The nitrogen compound's still there. Now, the bacteria is going to release some nitrogen into the air. So there's a couple different ways you can obtain the nitrogen. You just have to look at how it's getting the nitrogen. Is it eating a plant that contains the nitrogen? Is it breathing in the air that has some excess nitrogen that's being released back into the air? Or is it eating a plant that actually obtained the nitrogen? Nitrogen is constantly being recycled. If you have questions, please, please, please come see me. This is a tricky concept, but it's actually pretty simple once you get it. See you later.